Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredible physiological race against time that happens during a sudden cardiac arrest. Okay, let's get right into it. When a person collapses from cardiac arrest, a literal ticking clock starts inside their cells. We're going to unpack exactly what happens during that strict window of opportunity and how a highly synchronized medical response can physically stall that clock and save a life.
We've got a lot of ground to cover today. We'll start with the physiology of cardiac arrest, then break down the 3 phases of the survival window. After that, we'll talk about synchronizing the survival chain, the crucial difference between shockable and non-shockable arrests, post-cardiac arrest syndrome, and wrap up with our summary and key home messages.
Section 1. The physiology of cardiac arrest. Let's start by understanding what is physically happening inside the body on a cellular level when the heart suddenly stops beating.
So a cardiac arrest is an electrical malfunction causing a sudden cessation of heart function and blood flow, which rapidly leads to cellular hypoxia. Essentially, it's a total system failure where blood stops moving, plunging the body into severe oxygen deprivation. It's really important to note that this is fundamentally different from a heart attack, which is more of a plumbing issue where a vessel gets blocked. With cardiac arrest, the whole system just shuts down instantly.
And without oxygen, cells are forced to switch to a super inefficient process called anaerobic metabolism. Because of this, the heart's ATP, which is basically the energy currency of your cells, plummets. Your heart literally acts like a dying battery. It absolutely demands immediate physical intervention, like chest compressions, to generate blood flow and somehow recharge it.
Section 2. 3 phases of the window. This fading cellular battery creates a very strict window of opportunity for patient survival, which medical science divides into 3 critical phases.
We basically race through this timeline. From 0 to 4 minutes, we're in the electrical phase. Here, early defibrillation is highly successful because the heart still has some of that ATP battery left. But from 4 to 10 minutes, we hit the circulatory phase. That ATP is completely depleted, meaning compressions become absolutely crucial to circulate blood and manually recharge the cells before a shock will even do anything. Finally, if we go beyond 10 minutes, we enter the deadly metabolic phase, marked by severe, irreversible ischemic tissue damage.
To put this into perspective, brain damage can occur within just 4 to 6 minutes, and it becomes irreversible within 10 minutes if left untreated. That is a stark reality. It perfectly highlights just how incredibly small our window of opportunity is and why time is literally the most critical variable here.
Section 3. Synchronizing the survival chain. To force this window of opportunity open, modern medical guidelines rely entirely on synchronizing the survival chain.
The latest guidelines lay out a clear, unified system of care. It starts with recognition and emergency activation, moves right into high-quality CPR, then rapid defibrillation, advanced resuscitation, post-cardiac arrest care, and ultimately recovery and survivorship. If a resuscitation team can perfectly synchronize these 6 steps, they can physically hit pause on that metabolic clock. That high-quality CPR forces blood flow to protect the brain, setting the stage to reset the heart's electrical system.
It's a true relay race, where immediate bystander steps must seamlessly transition into advanced cardiac life support protocols. A lay person doing chest compressions has to hand off smoothly to paramedics who manage the airway, secure IV access, and push targeted medications like epinephrine. That seamless handoff is exactly what bridges the gap between the immediate circulatory crisis and definitive medical care.
Section 4. Shockable versus non-shockable arrests. Now, when the medical team arrives with their equipment, they face a critical fork in the road depending on the heart's specific electrical rhythm.
The strategy is entirely dictated by the heart monitor. The team has to figure out immediately, are we dealing with a chaotic, shockable rhythm like ventricular fibrillation or a non-shockable rhythm which looks like the total flatline of asystole?
The path forward splits dramatically here. For shockable rhythms, the priority is rapid defibrillation and CPR, and we actually hold off on administering epinephrine until the initial shocks fail. But for non-shockable rhythms, a shock simply won't help. Instead, the priority flips to continuous, high-quality CPR, getting early epinephrine on board, and urgently acting like detectives to investigate the underlying causes.
And to find those underlying causes during a non-shockable arrest, the team runs through a rapid mental checklist called the 5 H's and 5 T's. They're hunting for reversible issues. For the H's, they're looking at hypoxia, hypovolemia, hydrogen ions causing acidosis, hypo or hyperkalemia, and hypothermia.
For the T's, they check for a tension pneumothorax, cardiac tamponade, toxins, a pulmonary thrombosis, or a coronary thrombosis. Spotting and fixing just one of these is often the only way to get the heart beating again.
Section 5. Post-cardiac arrest syndrome. If the team's synchronized efforts successfully restart the heart, we hit a major milestone, but the physiological battle is far from over.
Achieving ROSC, or return of spontaneous circulation, is absolutely not recovery. It's actually the beginning of a highly complex intensive care phase. Getting a pulse back just means the patient survived the immediate circulatory crisis. Now, the pace shifts from frantic emergency to meticulous, long-term intensive care.
And this brings us to a really fascinating, yet incredibly dangerous, paradox called ischemia-reperfusion injury. You'd think restoring blood flow is exactly what the body wants, right? Well, that sudden rush of oxygenated blood back into starved tissues actually triggers a massive burst of reactive oxygen species. This sudden reperfusion heavily amplifies cellular inflammation and injury.
This massive systemic inflammatory response is known as post-cardiac arrest syndrome, or PCAS, and it hits three major areas. First, brain injury, leading to things like cerebral edema, impaired autoregulation, seizures, or coma. Second, myocardial dysfunction, which basically means the heart muscle is globally stunned and cardiac output drops, though this is usually reversible with support. And third, a massive systemic response that activates coagulation pathways and severely suppresses the immune system.
To battle this incredibly complex syndrome, strict post-resuscitation care utilizes the ABCDE approach. The clinical team systematically optimizes the airway, breathing, and circulation to make absolutely sure the recovering brain and that stunned heart muscle get exactly the right amount of support, all without throwing fuel on the reperfusion fire.
When we look at the specific interventions, the targets are incredibly precise. The team needs to maintain a mean arterial pressure, or MAP, of at least 65 millimeters of mercury to keep blood consistently flowing to the brain. They implement targeted temperature management for a minimum of 36 hours to carefully cool and protect the brain from inflammation. They have to titrate oxygen to stay between 94 and 98%, actively preventing both hypoxia and hyperoxia, since too much oxygen actually worsens tissue damage. They also treat root causes like acute coronary syndrome and use continuous EEG monitoring to evaluate how the neurological recovery is progressing.
Section 6. Summary and key home messages. Okay, let's bring all of this together and look at our main takeaways for today. Here's the absolute bottom line. That window of opportunity closes incredibly fast as cellular ATP depletes. High-quality CPR is the vital physical intervention that generates blood flow to recharge the heart. From there, medical interventions diverge sharply depending on whether the rhythm is shockable or non-shockable. And even after a pulse returns, ROSC triggers post-cardiac arrest syndrome via ischemia-reperfusion injury. Ultimately, the seamless synchronization of every single step in the chain of survival is the only real path to full recovery.
The chain of survival relies entirely on immediate action to force that window of opportunity open. The medical science behind all this is amazing, but it all completely fails if the very first step doesn't happen. So, if a sudden cardiac arrest occurs right in front of you today, are you prepared to be that crucial first link? Are you ready to step up and start compressions? Think about it. If the answer is no, today might just be the perfect day to sign up for a CPR class. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.